It's a difficult decision more and more Canadians are facing as this country's population ages, and that's whether to place a loved one into long-term care. A Winnipeg family is now raising questions about procedures at one nursing home after what happened to their relative and her disturbing final days. Alex Friedman has that story.
95-year-old Evelyn Gabbs was always making people smile.
The nurses thought she was funny. The residents thought she was funny. This is her 90th birthday with her.
For a good part of the last 6 years, she lived at Fred Douglas Lodge in Winnipeg. In January, she was taken into the dining room for breakfast. According to records, by lunch, a nurse noticed her tongue was purple and hanging out of her mouth. She was unresponsive when touched on her right side. She had no gag reflex. The nurse decided against calling an ambulance, instead waited for another nurse. It wasn't until 6 that evening the family learned Evelyn had suffered a stroke.
And I said, "And you're just phoning me now?" I said, "Why didn't you send her to the hospital?" "Well, we wanted to wait till we got in touch with you." I said, "Getting in touch with us?" I said, "It's 6 hours later."
By 7 p.m., Evelyn had arrived at the hospital. Doctors said if they'd seen her earlier, the outcome may have been different. The home has a policy that states if it calls the ambulance, it pays. But if the family decides to call, they pay.
I'm thinking they waited for us because they didn't want to pay for the ambulance.
The Gabbs were charged $383. She spent her final days at the home like this.
Seeing the fear in her eyes, looking at us like she wanted help.
Her situation was getting worse. At the hospital, she'd been prescribed up to 10 milligrams of morphine every 2 hours to keep her comfortable. Back at the home, she was only given half that every 4 hours.
One of the nurses told my sister, "Your mother is suffering, but we can't do anything about it because we haven't been given any instructions to increase her pain medication."
4 days later, the dosage was increased, only hours before Evelyn Gabbs passed away. Regional health officials only learned what happened this week. They say they've begun an investigation and have apologized to the family, but would not consent to an on-camera interview. They say they will cover the cost of that ambulance ride, but for the Gabbs, money is far less important than answers. Alex Friedman, CBC News, Winnipeg.